So I just graduated from UCLA about 3 days ago, and I plan on moving to Mexico in about a week. And not just anywhere in Mexico, I plan on moving specifically to Tijuana, which is considered one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And a lot of my friends and family have been asking me the same question. Why Mexico? I'm pre-med, and a lot of my friends that are also pre-med are taking more of a traditional route. They're doing either research that they're really interested in, or they're going to be a medical assistant at a local hospital. So I keep getting the same question, why Mexico? And I decided I wanted to make a video about it to share kind of my background, my motivations for going to Mexico, and my goals there. So a little bit about me. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and then I moved to San Diego with my mom and my brother when I was 5 years old. So I come from an immigrant background. I went to Torrey Pines High School, and then I went to Santa Barbara City College for 3 years before I transferred to UCLA, and then finished my last 2 years in college with a degree in neuroscience and philosophy. And growing up in an immigrant family, we grew up without healthcare. My mom was going to acupuncture school at a time. We lived off her student visa for most of my childhood. And I remember vividly when she dropped a glass on her foot and it just left a huge gash in her ankle. Instead of going to the hospital, my mom called over a veterinarian friend, and he ended up stitching the gash up. And at the end, he confessed that was the first time he'd ever worked on human skin. That kind of sparked my passion for medicine. And growing up as an immigrant, I found it very easy to relate to a lot of my other friends who came from immigrant backgrounds. And a lot of them predominantly were from Hispanic communities. And I was always curious about their culture and what their life was like in Mexico or wherever else in South America and Central America that they came from. About halfway through my college career, right before I transferred to UCLA, I was at Grace Point Church, the local church here that I attend in San Diego. And Pastor Elmo from Tijuana came and gave a sermon about his experience serving as a missionary over there and how he ran a church in Tijuana. And I remember that sermon really spoke to me, and I was just so curious about what life was like over there. And I went up to him at the end of the sermon, got to know him, chat with him a little bit, and asked him, hey, can I come down one day and just check it out? He said, of course. So I ended up spending a couple nights over there and then organizing a soccer tournament that they held for the kids in the area. And that was such an awesome experience. I got to really talk to a few of the people who grew up there. And one of them was a nurse, and we were talking about his journey to medicine. And he was telling me as a kid, for 2 years straight, he had to live off only rice and beans. I mean, I couldn't believe it. He told me he got so sick of rice and beans, he wanted to eat something else, but his family just couldn't afford it. And that was just mind-blowing to me. I'd never really gone hungry in my life. Even though I faced unique challenges here in the United States as an immigrant from a low-income household, I never had that 2-year phase when I was living off only rice and beans, you know? And that just kind of put my life into perspective. And it really gave me an appreciation for the little things that I have, that I take for granted, that other people don't have access to. So that first trip to Tijuana was really memorable. And I came back to San Diego, and at the time I was working again as a door-to-door salesman for a pest control company. And this is actually how I financed my college career. And I did this for 5 years. And I just remember coming back from that Tijuana trip and going to sell pest control in these really nice gated communities and talking to multimillionaires, right? And I just remember feeling that by and large, a lot of these people who pretty much had everything that they wanted really weren't satisfied. Even though they had access to all these luxuries around them, it really didn't feel like they appreciated what they had as much as the people in Tijuana did. And I started going back to Tijuana pretty regularly. And I made a lot of friends there at this point. I started learning Spanish, and I really put a lot of work into it. So I got a lot better. And my initial observations were confirmed. Even though the people in Tijuana really had not a lot by our standards here in the US, they were just so happy, and they had such a tight-knit community with people that they can rely on. And just to witness that really changed my perspective on what it meant to be happy and what happiness should really stem from. So by the time I finished my first year at UCLA, I was going back and forth between Tijuana and San Diego, LA pretty frequently. And I ended up actually volunteering at this hospital nearby. Our church went over there to hand out Christmas gifts to a lot of the sick kids. And they really appreciated it. And the doctor there, after he found out I was interested in medicine, invited me to come back and shadow some of the surgeons and the med students over there. And I thought that would be a wonderful opportunity. So I started going back every other week. And the main thing that I'd do is I'd spend a full day with one of the medical students during their rotations. And I got to see a bunch of different departments. The ones that stood out to me the most were urgencia, which is the emergency department, and the pediatric emergency department there. And I remember one time there was a kid who was really bleeding profusely from his rectum. All the doctors started freaking out, and the family was crying. They had no idea what to do. One of the medical students went over there and really just comforted the family, just letting them know that they have great doctors, they're going to be doing everything they can. And just to hear that in Spanish and just the way they approached that with such warmth, it really provided an example for me of how to provide very culturally attuned and personalized care for them, especially in the face of uncertainty and suffering. It really helps to have a source of stability. Just seeing that happen in real life in this new cultural context was really eye-opening for me. And it really made me think about how the language and the culture painted the framework in which the situation came to life. For me, I know how speaking someone's language really changes the whole tone of a conversation, and how you kind of view each other in the relationship that you have. For example, when I watch Korean TV shows and movies, I feel the emotions a lot more intensely because the words that they're using tugs at the strings of my heart that other languages like English can't really reach. And it's because it's tied to these core memories that I have that I can't even recall consciously, but that my heart remembers and that it responds to in feelings of warmth and nostalgia. And these feelings come up in times of uncertainty when you really don't know what's going to happen and you could lose your whole world. And for someone to be able to communicate in your language, the language that speaks to you most, is invaluable. So because I want to be a practicing doctor in California, especially tailored towards immigrant communities, specifically Latinx immigrant communities, I really think that this experience for me to not just learn the language, but also the culture and the customs and the values, the system of values that people in Mexico and Latin America at large have, will really help me to become someone who can deliver culturally attuned care. And I think the biggest part of that, on top of working at the hospital, will be the meaningful relationships that I create while I'm living at the church. One of the biggest problems that I hear is not just at the church, but in Tijuana in general, is the lack of male leadership, especially in young men. And that stems from a lot of the surrounding factors that are unique to Tijuana and Mexico, and one of them being the cartel. And when young men are teenagers, this sort of glamorized life of drug use and violence and power, it really appeals to them, and it ropes them in at such a young age before they really fully know what they're committing to, and it's really hard to get out once you're in there. For example, every week, there's a mom who comes to our church and writes a prayer request. And it's for her son, and her son's been missing for about a year now. And she prays that her son will turn up, that they'll finally be able to find her. And she's been going around posting flyers and asking people if they've seen her missing son. And not too long ago, the cartel actually reached out to her and said, "Hey, your son's gone. Stop making all this noise or else we're going to take further actions." And despite situations like that, too many young kids are still drawn into that sort of lifestyle. When I first went to Tijuana, one of the members of the church told me that a lot of these things that are dragging the kids down come from a feeling of being invisible, like society doesn't really care about them. A lot of the members of his church come from very poor backgrounds and live literally in wooden shacks on the side of the main canal that runs through Tijuana. And he told me that my presence, just being there on my own, really just was inspirational. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm just here to just observe what it's like. That wasn't something I was even thinking about. But he told me, no, your presence literally inspires them and gives them hope. And that's when I realized, if my presence alone can make such a difference, how much of a difference can I make if I really put forth the effort? Really lead by example and reach some of these kids at their hearts, and maybe tell them some things that they've never heard before that they really need to hear, to show them that they matter and their actions matter, and that they have the potential to lift up not only themselves but the community around them. And I think individual change, reaching out to people one-on-one, is really how you make a difference in this world. And growing up as an immigrant in San Diego, when I moved to the United States, I didn't know any English, and it really was kind of a difficult adjustment at first. But now I realize that experience really prepared me to just jump into a new culture, a new foreign culture that I don't know anything about or don't speak the language, and really just learn quickly because I've done it before. So ultimately my goal as I move over there for this next year is to deepen my connections with the people, with the friends and the families that I've already gotten close to over there, to be a role model, to lead by example, and to be a pillar that other people can truly depend on. And I know I can really make a difference if I'm willing to listen, truly listen to people and their problems and make them feel heard, and to relate to them and to show them that they can make the most of their lives and the lives of the people around them. So I've created this platform, Sea Valiente, to document my time in Tijuana, and also just to make medicine interesting and hopefully get some of the kids over there to see how fascinating medicine and science can be. So if you want to support me on my journey, click that subscribe button and the bell button, and you'll get a glimpse into the lives of some of the people that I'll be growing with in Tijuana as you see the next chapter of my life unfold.